Now that we're at the range, we've got our sight sighted in, and if you've seen our sight-in video, I talk about slightly moving your pin just a little bit to the left of your arrow. You see your pins having to go one side or the other a whole lot, it usually means you're inducing torque through your grip. That's a whole nother video for you. So right now, we have a total arrow weight of 496 grains. And we're going to shoot down at the tape at the end of the range, which we'll show you when we walk down there. Sorry. And then I'm going to show you another thing we're going to do before we finish tuning that will help you a lot. Is we're going to come in and we're going to sand down the inside of our nocks because they're too tight on our center serving. You can go back in and reserve it yourself to make it thinner. I don't like doing that. You can adjust your nocks just as easily as you can. The center serving actually easier. So I've already fired one arrow down there. Just looking to see how they shoot. Got my peep adjusted. And they're flying really straight. Now all I'm going to do right now is shoot the Bareshaft. And what I'm checking for is to see the flight on it. The other two flew straight into the tape that we were aiming for, but I want you to look at them when we carry the camera down there. So this is the Bareshaft. Again, it's the third arrow being shot. So it's downrange. Let's go see where they hit. Zero, and I didn't have an aiming point. I was simply aiming at the tape. So then I use that as my next aiming point once I adjusted my peep slightly. So now I'm going to come in here, I'm going to put the orange dot in, and we're going to try to get our Bareshaft and our veined arrows hitting on top of each other. If you notice, which is going to be hard to show you on the video, but the arrow is not crazy left or right. I'm not inducing a lot of torque, and it seems to have spined out correctly for the arrow that I set up. Now what we'll do is slowly start to bring those together, okay? So we're going to go back and we're going to shoot again until we get them hitting together. All right, we're back at it. We just shot the first group with the Bareshaft and the two fletched arrows. And I'm just going back at it now. I'm going to get the sight dialed in, and then we'll tune those a little bit more. So they're hitting consistently to the right of where I'm aiming. We'll adjust the sight just a little bit for that. And I'll try not to punch the trigger like I am right now. I'm just really loving this Matthews Traverser. It feels pretty good. Okay, so those two arrows are stacked on top of each other. The Bareshaft and the fletched arrow. This may not be much teaching for y'all since that arrow spun out really well. One thing that I've learned is I actually usually go slightly stiffer spine, especially when I'm adding weight up front than the bow would normally take on a vertex. This would, without a 4-fletch and a wrap, would probably spine slightly weak, nothing that you couldn't tune out. But for the most part, I like the wrap in the back when I'm adding weight in the front because it balances the spine. And I completely moved on that one. As you saw the first time, we're right with our Bareshaft, and we're a little bit left with the vein. It could be moving a little bit, but I'm going to make a slight adjustment in poundage to see if that tweaks the energy going to the arrow and the spine just a little bit, okay? All right, so the way we like to do this, after we run that laser down, we like to keep the rest as center shotted as possible. There's times that we do have to adjust it. I don't like doing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to adjust my poundage for it. And so I'm going to take out half a turn. Ignore that craziness from Matthews on the first ones. So I just went a half turn. No, I'm not going to check it with the draw checker and tell you the exact weight we hit. But what I'm going to try to do now is, we knew that we're hitting to the right. I'm going to use a Bareshaft. So again, whenever the Bareshaft hits to the right, it means that your arrow spine's weaker. So I've just dropped the poundage a little bit, okay? And it did move our Bareshaft to the left a little bit. Can you see down there? I can't quite tell. I know that one hit low. Low left. Video in one setting because we got a little bit busy in the shop. Back at it now. Just shot 2 of the fleshed arrows downrange, and we stacked the Bareshaft down there. Remember what we did is we came back. We were getting a little bit of a weak. Our Bareshaft was hitting a little bit to the right of the fleshed arrow, so we came back. We backed out half a turn, and now that's all it took. We still have a center shot at rest after the laser tune. So it's stacked again. That will be pretty much the tune that I do on my bow. I now will start to tweak the way that I shoot, and just getting, instead of punching my thumb trigger, I'm going to start getting where I'm following through. I'll probably go to a hinge release to get that training back in. I don't like shooting the hinge during hunting, it's just me, but I do like my thumb. I just need to get that taken care of. So I've got the bow tuned. Now I got to fix all of my errors in my form and my form flaws. So we will also broadhead tune in the next part of this video. What I did was I put an iron wheel 100 grain on, I think, broadhead. I'm gonna start broadhead tuning. I always put in like a dime size dot down there, maybe slightly bigger on my target. And I always take my broadhead and run it that direction, okay? Mine will cant slightly to the right because when I'm shooting a thumb release, I turn the string just a little bit, and you'll notice just a little bit of arrow movement, not much, if your knock is correct. So I'm gonna shoot that one right now, really try to follow through on my form because that's as important as anything, and really burn my pin into the target. For the most part, whenever we tune to a big bladed broadhead, we can get 4 blade broadheads and 3 blades to shoot about the same. But if you're going to switch between multiple broadheads, I highly suggest to tune to the one that when you watch them fly, they fly like crap. Because the other ones will usually tend to fly right in there with them. So again, but if you're going to switch, you're going to go on a hunt, I think it's most ethical to probably tune to the exact broadhead you're going with. To each his own, but that's my recommendation on that. There's an iron wheel vented 100. So that's the first one. We hit a little bit left. So despite our broadhead or Bareshaft and our vanes hitting right on top of each other, that particular broadhead flies a little bit different. Dead on. So let's go check it out. So that Bareshaft tuning got us where? It got us when we're putting our arrows together with the broadhead. So it saved us a little bit of time. If you're broadhead tuning, what you're going to do is you're going to make marks. So if my field fill point sitting to the right of the broadhead, I'm gonna move my rest slightly to the right. That's the easy way to do it. Primarily, you're gonna go back and start changing your spine of your arrows, whether you add wraps or take weight away from the rear. If it's hitting to the right, you're a little bit weak, so I would add weight to the rear end. Add a lot of knock on these. Add the fletch. Add a fletch. If you're at a 3 fletch, go to 4 fletch. If you don't have a lot of knock, add the lot of knock. Drop to 100 grain instead of 125 grains up front. Stiffen that arrow. If it's the left, it's the opposite. You want more weight up front than in the back. So we're gonna go down here and show you that group of what that tuning got us. So we just walked down to the target so y'all can see this. They are right on top of each other, and this fill point probably hit the broadhead. That would be my expectation of any broadhead tune. I don't want gaps that are that big. Our expectation is for them to stack on top of each other. And that's just where the Bareshaft tuning got us. We Bareshaft tuned at 20 yards, and our Bareshaft was right on top of our fletched arrows. It means we're spying correctly. We did have to make that half adjustment in the weight of our bow, but that was less than 2 pounds that it wound up being in the adjustment on that traverse. And we got this perfect flight. Now, you're not done. Now you're gonna go perfect your form. So tune into some of our other videos as we go through form, following through shot, burning the pin in. And when you're broadhead tuning, I stick my pin on the nail head and I burn that pin in there. I do not lose concentration. After I pull through that shot and push through at the same time, I burn that pin into the dadgum target on both shots, and that's gonna give you good flight. I'm gonna make sure I'm not torquing the bow. I'm making sure my first, second, and third axis on my side are level, and that's what gets you that. Go back through the video, set your bow up, take the time to do it right, adjust those arrows to where they're the right spine, and this is gonna be way less of a headache.